You might be in for a bit of a shock if you have been working remotely due to this whole lockdown thing. In fact, millions of us are going to have a bit of a shocker coming up soon. And we have been busy here for the first hour, talking a little bit about the Amazon bait and switch reviews, what I do when I'm online shopping, and how you can help keep yourself not just safer, but make sure you don't get ripped off. We went through an article from ARS Technica about how he did get ripped off for gifts this season. We also talked a little bit about mobile endpoint security, some of the problems that, frankly, we've had with our mobile devices. How Jeff Bezos, in fact, got a massive problem. He got involved with his divorce and everything else because of his mobile device and denial of service attacks, what that is all about. We're going to talk this hour a bit about our remote workforce, the tax implications. We've got another arrest and jail time. So we're going to talk about bad facial recognition and what's going on there, cyber resilience, and what can we do this year. I really want to get into this hacked home cameras used to live stream police raids in what are called swatting attacks. And then SolarWinds. This just bugs me because there are so many ways this massive hack could have been avoided. Our federal agencies have been compromised. Microsoft now says that due to this SolarWinds hack, somebody got into Microsoft's source code. Those are the key to the kingdom. And one of the ways Microsoft relies to stay secure is by keeping its source code secret. And of course, we know how that's worked. Microsoft has never had any vulnerabilities. So we'll get into that. A lot to talk about this hour. First off, let's talk about this problem with taxes. Many of us have problems. If you work in Maine and you work in Massachusetts, you could have a little bit of a tax problem, but there is a reciprocal agreement that's in place. So if you had been working in Mass and you live in Maine, okay, I can see that. You're driving down to Mass every day and you're living in Maine, so the reciprocity agreement covers that. But how about if you have never stepped foot in Massachusetts? How about if you started working for a company out of New York or a company out of California? Did you realize that many of these, all of them, by the way, Democrat administrations, are now going to require you to pay state taxes? Connecticut, you name it, all of these. It is very concerning to me. And when we get right down to workforces and the fact that this whole lockdown has really accelerated this trend of working from home. And because of that, we've got employers who are letting their workers perform their jobs remotely from home, most if not all of the time. So where does the legal nexus tie in? So they're saying, hey, listen, your employer and you both knew exactly where you live and work, but the state departments of taxation can have some very different ideas about where here is. So as a result, Texas, Utah, Arkansas workers who are working for New York or Massachusetts-based companies will have income taxes withheld from the paychecks, even if they've never set foot in the home office or never set foot in the state. How about that one? Thing for New Hampshire. If you live in Maine, of course, a lot of these states that have state income taxes, they will go ahead and say, okay, you don't have to worry about paying our state income tax as well. Or in some cases, they look at it and say, oh, you pay less state income tax than we charge our residents. I don't want to call them citizens because we are not being treated like true citizens anymore. But you pay less in your home state than our residents pay. So you'll have to make up the difference as well. So we've got dozens of major companies out there, all the way through little guys, who have been increasing their support from working from home permanently. And I think that's great. We have businesses closing offices. Thank goodness I don't own business space. We've let our leases lapse, counting on physical distance, flexible workforce. We're going to reduce real estate needs. I know one of my daughters is in that boat right now. And in many ways, it can be a win-win. Employers can save overhead costs on the expensive square footage in high-demand cities. Look at what's happened right now in San Francisco, for instance. They are a great example. San Francisco, the city, has lost 43% of its tax revenue. So you look at it and say, okay, well, they've lost a lot of tax revenue because of the lockdown, and people aren't going out shopping. They're not buying stuff. No, according to the San Francisco Economist, and yes, indeed, the city of San Francisco has its own economist. No, that 43% drop in revenue is due to people moving out of the city. New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, all expensive. And people are moving to Maine, to Montana, dial in from the woods, or get a nice little place down in Florida, for instance. But as far as the state's concerned, your beachside cabana might just as well be right in the middle of downtown Manhattan, and you're going to be taxed as such. So we've had these problems for a long time, living in one state, working in another. But typically it's been adjacent states, just like, again, Maine and Massachusetts, right? D.C., Maryland, Virginia, maybe Pennsylvania, West Virginia, or Delaware. Kansas City itself goes across two states. You've got Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri. So traveling across city limits can mean crossing state lines as well. So any major city near a border has lots of workers that go over the lines back and forth every day. And that's always been tricky from a tax perspective, because both the state where you work and the state where you live are going to want to try and tax your income. But still, typically only one state at a time has been able to tax you for your income. And most jurisdictions with a lot of overlaps have agreements, as I said, Maine and Mass. And New Hampshire doesn't really have that agreement because they don't have any state income tax or, of course, sales tax on almost anything. But this is really going to be a problem, frankly. So keep in mind that if you are working for a company that is headquartered or even just has a presence in Arkansas, Connecticut, Delaware, Massachusetts, Nebraska, New York, and Pennsylvania. All of those states have convenience rules on the books that require any work performed for an employer based in their state that it be taxed as if the worker performing the job is actually in the state, no matter where the employee is actually located. Now, New Hampshire is one of the 9 states that does not have an income tax, and it's right now in the process of suing Massachusetts over its convenience rules. And 4 other states, by the way, New Jersey, Connecticut, Hawaii, and Iowa, are supporting the suit. So we'll see what happens there in federal courts. As you probably already know, going to court doesn't mean the right thing is going to happen. It's gotten really bad. But at any rate, something to be careful about if you are working remotely for a company. Many of these states are going to be coming after you for tax dollars. We've got a couple of things to get in. I want to talk right now about facial recognition. We, a year, maybe more ago, talked about this company called Clearview AI. Clearview. And what they've been doing has been questionable. They've gone online and done searches. They've combed through social media, and they've found and downloaded every picture they can get the grubby little paws on. And then what they've done is they've put together some facial recognition software. So they've violated laws, they violated platform rules. It's almost like Facebook when it got started, where apparently Zuckerberg went ahead and stole all of the records of all of the kids that were there going to school at Harvard, including their photographs, and put together this little Facebook thing, the Facebook, and had people rating other people by their looks, etc., and just basically stole to get his business started, Facebook. That's the allegation. It's been out there. There's been a whole movie by this about what he did. So that's what Clearview did too. They went ahead and decided we'll just steal all of the photos we can of people. They tied facial recognition software into it, and they performed scans of these images that were scraped from the internet and created a biometric database of the images. We're going to talk about that and how we now have people being wrongly, not just accused, but arrested, spent jail time. It's a crazy world out there.